Hey, welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles on Shop Talk Tuesday. If it's Tuesday in your neck of the woods, it's Shop Talk Tuesday at the I Know a Guy Bicycles. Hey, thank you for joining in. If you're watching this on the replay, please put any kind of comments below. If you have any of these topics that actually hit home or resonate or in your neck of the woods, seeing similar situations, feel free to join the community. Yes, this is a community-based. Yes, my community base is not just those who ride bikes, but those who work on bikes. Mainly, a lot of the time, that's what we're actually doing in any case. I do have a fair share of individuals that like to join in that either own shops or work in shops. So thank you. This is a safe space for you to hang out and either verbalize your concerns, your situations, or what have you, or be part of the community, as well as those who just ride. So yeah, thank you for hanging out. And again, it is Shop Talk Tuesday. Yep, it's Tuesday. It's Shop Talk Tuesday. Hey, Tim, thank you for joining. Just a little message here. Hello from Colorado. Yes, I am based in Loveland, Colorado. If none of you have, or if you're first time watching this, or not too sure where I'm at, Colorado is in the United States. I do have a fair amount of individuals that watch in from outside to in, which is great. And yes, it's more of, it's considered mile high, and mile high is from sea level. And yeah, it's we have a little bit of altitude, and then you have the mountains on top of that. So a lot of great riding from road to gravel to mountain. We have it all here, as well as a whole bunch of other outdoor activities and various other kinds of things here. So cycling is a huge part of our culture here in Colorado, and it is as well as a lot of other places. I mean, you do have the races and all that too, but most importantly, it's a huge general community of bike paths and families and recreational riding and all those things. It's a very healthy place to live, as we have a lot of sunny days here. It doesn't get too hot like it does down south, and we do have winter, but it doesn't have lingering snow. Therefore, we have a little bit of nicer days in the wintertime to do those either outdoor winter activities or riding your bike as well. A lot of those particular places, mountain bike resort or mountain resorts that use snowboarding, skiing over all these years have now been opened up to a lot of cycling community, adventure type riding, downhill riding, all that for years. So it's one of those places that it's pretty cool. But in any case, this is your weekly preview of what a shop mechanic does, as well as I am an owner of my own business too, but I've worked in shops as well as with my parents, had Parker bikes in the 90s. Yeah, Tim, take a swig of coffee there, buddy. I know it's early. And thank you for hanging out. Tim and I have a running joke every time we talk about either Parker bikes or how long I've been in the industry. I should be taking some kind of liquid beverage, but you know, the only liquid courage I have today is coffee to keep me going. Got lots to do. It's June, and if you're watching this on the replay, this is the last week of June. It is, or pretty close. So yeah, the last week of June in the States is usually a pretty active cycling month. I mean, it pretty typically is. That's when weather pretty much across the board is opened up to be a little bit nicer. And therefore, we're getting a lot more sales, service, people are outdoor looking for bikes and to be done and so forth. But in our environment and the state of the state, and we'll talk about one of those power play moves in later. There's an article that came up that I wanted to give some of my insight about, but alluding to what we're talking about most of the Shop Talk Tuesdays is what the hell am I doing this week? And week to week different. It will vary between seasons as well as what I do. I'm not just a little repair shop. I'm also a YouTuber, social media person. I sell parts. I help my community for event rides. I also, refurbish bikes to resell. So I'm kind of a micro bike shop, if you will. I touch all those little bases. And the thing is, it's just mostly me. I do have help. A shout out to Jack. He's my front end dev. He used to work with me back in the day, and we've been longtime friends since high school. So he's gotten my website to be completely beautiful and functional, more importantly. And he loves bikes, even though he's in the soft world game now. And he really looks at my website as like a sandbox for fun and play and kind of thing. He's really has helped me out along this journey. So partnerships like that and friendships like that with any shop, that is, all shops have that. They're a community, regardless if they're on the payroll or not. You have a lot of people that help provide that you're keeping you busy, being in business, and still providing that valued service to your communities through the cycling realm. That's a very important key, because a lot of bike shops wouldn't make it on their own without additional help. We're almost like nonprofit in a sense, because we really make very little. And even though we're a profitable company, it's not that much to be rich off of. So nobody gets into cycling to be rich. So let's put it that way. So we're usually here, that's passion driven, which is going to allude to my first topic today, which is a great segue. And this is all just off the cuff. You think this would be script, which is not, or is very obviously not scripted. But yeah, I'd like to give it a couple minutes here for people to start remembering it's Tuesday. Oh, I need to watch the guy be a fool of himself in his, later age, old mechanic in a shop. And it's just amazing that you guys are watching. So a couple shout outs to those who are chiming in and through. I try to read all the chats. I try to respond to most of them. If we get a wackadoodle in there, I'll try to make sure they go away, as well as encourage people to put in. And I'll try to address any of the questions or answer that. Sometimes I'll overlook something, so I do apologize if I don't answer all of them. If I don't, throw it down in the comment on the replay, and I'll address those questions at a later time. So yes, thank you for being actively involved within this community that I'm trying to build up under I Know a Guy Bicycles. So in any case, let's just give a couple shout outs here. And again, this is a bike mechanic trying to do YouTube. So bear with us. It's a journey. Bubble, hello, thank you for joining in. Appreciate it. Steve, thank you. Good timing for me to listen from the UK. Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, it's a little bit later. It's in the evening time. Cycling home from work. Nice. I hope your commute is most pleasurable and relaxing from a long day of work. I mean, I used to commute, but my commute now is basically down the stairs. Our bedroom is literally above me right now. So kind of nice. I enjoy it, but you can't get away from it. That's for darn sure. Oh, that's right. How long should it take for a beginner mechanic to build a bike out of the box and true wheels, adjust shifting, etc.? So I saw your comments from last week, and that's the first part I'm going to be talking about this. And thank you, because you kind of inspired me to go back to what the grassroots of the concept of Shop Talk Tuesday is, helping all those are either riding, working on their own bikes, starting off in the cycling industry, which if you're really wanting to do that, thank you for joining, because it's not somewhere that a lot of people find they enjoy doing it, but it's not long term. As Patrick would mention that, thank you Patrick for chiming in, that working side by side over several years in cycling, it's just, you wonder where you're going to go from here. There's a lot of different directions, and starting off, we'll talk about that. In addition to back to the grassroots of, hey, there's not a large pipeline to get people into the cycling industry, and there's also not a huge pipeline for elevating opportunity to get better paying jobs to actually give you a living wage. That's always been the pinch. There's better opportunities lately in the last 10 years, I would say, than I didn't have. but I would be able to take advantage of that if, if I was younger, and those things of, we will touch upon that through these series of Shop Talk Tuesdays, but we will address DeBubble's question here momentarily. Yes, and I've been in a couple of conversations with a POS system in England, what's it called? Booking. They have a word to play. It's basically a program, a point of sale for listing your. It's a pipeline for your customers to go through to make appointments, and it's the CRM built-in program, very similar to, well, same kind of points of a normal POS would be point of sale system. If you don't know what POS is, not the other POS, where. Anyway, I'm getting off track, but like Ascend has one that's basically Trek owned. Also Lightspeed is another one. So if you're in the back end of a bike shop and you're trying to figure out how to do bookings and so forth, this is a very intriguing product. I'm in this very beginning of, I wouldn't say negotiation, but I'm sniffing them out basically and seeing if it's so far at a glance, it looks really great. When it slows down for me a little bit, I'll apply a little more effort of checking out the program. They gave me a sandbox to play with to kind of see how it's applicable. They've been very successful in Europe. Going back to the timestamp, yes, when I'm having a 9 o'clock meeting with them, it's 4 o'clock their time. So it's like I'm just starting my day, and technically, and then they're just wrapping up. So it's kind of funny talking about time changes. But Tim, 5 o'clock. Somewhere, yes, it is. It's right. But for me, I got a lot to do today, so most of the time it's just coffee anyway. And Scott, thank you for joining in. Scott's a good customer of mine locally here, and Loveland is very nice, of course, as he's mentioned. And it's been 90s, and this week it's jumped back down to the 70s degrees Fahrenheit here in the States, and a little more not as sweating. It's a nice little change. It's even although the East Coast of the United States right now, or mid, is getting cooked, literally cooked, which we're gonna have that. Don't most shop guys have sugar mama? Tim, there's a good portion of us, yes. So, I would say that because I've worked with a few. And Patrick, you know who I'm talking about that we worked with in Wheels of Motion in Michigan. Doug, thank you. Oh, it's nice. Oh yeah. Yeah. Doug, thanks for joining in, for sure. All right, we got the timestamps out of the way, so everybody has their time zone. So we're probably broadcasting over, or at least being watched over like 5 different time zones, which is awesome. Thank you again for here. So the bubble was talking about becoming a new mechanic. And I was thinking about this earlier, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can go through my basically knee-jerk rhythm, already ingrained like verbiage of what a new mechanic should do as a perspective, as a bike shop owner or service manager, what have you, that kind of thing. But I got a gym here to work on today too. But I wanted to give it a perspective of kind of reminders of those who are our service managers or bike shop owners. Your management role also is not just to make sure everything gets done, is to make sure that your team is the most effective team possible. And I know this sounds corporate-ish, but it's one of those scenarios where you invest time into your employees and give them the best ability to flourish within even building a bike, to selling a bike, or putting stuff away, or checking in inventory, whatever the case is. You give them the best tools possible, the best guidance possible, and not kind of run your shop with an iron fist, because I've worked in shops like that and they're horrible. Nobody wants to be in that scenario. So, you know, and I'm not saying that's very often. I'm saying that periodically within all retail that happens. You'll come across that dutter of a location. Let's just put it that way. But most of the time, most cycling cultures and most shops, even in corporate shops, will have those who have been working in shops for a long time. And we remember very distinctively when we were in your shoes, sitting there going, what do I do with all these damn things? Do I use, you know? So yeah, so you got, you know, to become a better mechanic over the years, you got to embrace one thing for sure. You will not know everything. You will not learn everything, and your continue to drive to keep learning is going to give you the best success possible. Because there's always changing. The market is designed to do that. The manufacturers change it up on us, and sometimes for the good, sometimes for the horrible bad. But we're here to help the person that's writing these things to have the best experience possible. And we need to take pride, and we do take pride of what we do when we work on things. And the more you work on them, and the more you have the experience of the customer coming in and having that good experience and going for that ride, and they come back to you, like Scott, goes, hey, you did a great job. You know, you did a wonderful job on Wife's bike. She had a wonderful time. It was a great experience. Those are the gold nuggets that every mechanic goes, you know, it's like, oh, I did something great, you know, because we work on these and a lot of times we don't get feedback. And then the feedback we do get is sometimes like, oh, you messed up here. Like, oh, crap, you know, because these things are complicated. Allude to the video I had on Sunday, and there was some pushback of like, oh, that should have been, you know, cable routing was wrong. And there's pushback, like, oh, that's a quick fix and so forth. And it's like, well, that's not really the point of the video. The point of the video is for somebody that's just getting on a bike and going for a ride and may not be very versed at it. And it was a smaller frame. And that smaller frame would have done a shorter individual. And those individuals may have not know how to shift even. And they're riding a bike and it actually could hurt them if it doesn't do it correctly. So that was the point of the whole thing. Well, therefore, there alludes to our importance and our role within our cycling community. And I mean, I'm making it sound like huger than it is, but it is. It's because these things are dangerous. We all know that. It's dangerous not just to ride them, it's dangerous where we ride them. And it's dangerous where we're, you know, come on people, we're meant to walk. And we put two rolling fast wheels underneath us, and we're going to cook somewhere, and we're relying on balance and gravity and surfaces and all those things. So there's a lot of risk to it. So much for we all have to have insurance. So that was another person who was asking, like, what kind of insurance do I do for a small shop? Well, it's complicated because insurance, if you don't know, for a business portion of this, you have to have insurance for your sales and the products you sell. Then you have a whole nother insurance for service portion of it. Then you have another part of the insurance which is for doing events and training rides or group rides and all that. It gets to be a total cluster of different insurances, and believe me, it is not sometimes easy to find. What was it? Travelers is what I'm under. I mean, not a plug or anything, but I had to go through a broker to find this insurance. I couldn't just go through my State Farm and go, hey, you have this? And they're like, oh, we don't do that. But I'll give you somebody's number that can broker something up for you. So yeah, and it's an expensive lift, and you got to have it because I've been doing this for a long time. If you miss one thing by accident, you're liable. I mean, that's just unfortunate. But in any case, not to scare the pants out of you as a beginning, but safety, that alludes to the number one thing. If you take anything away from this, is safety first. Double check those bolts. Double check that pedals. Make sure the person has a helmet to ride for a test ride. Make sure it's adjusted right. They know how to use the brakes, how to do the shifting, and have all that stuff working properly and correctly. That is the underlining number one thing. It needs to be safe. That's our primary freaking job. And we should take pride in it for sure. But in any case, woo! Okay, let's get off the super seriousness of it because it is serious. But then again, cycling is supposed to be fun. Okay, there is a good entry. Is there a good entry level gravel bike that you recommend? Okay, one that works and doesn't cost too much. Gravel bikes are tricky because gravel bikes are actually a byproduct of what cyclocross used to be. Well, cyclocross is still. Now gravel is changed into like 5 different directions between like adventure gravel, race gravel, recreational gravel, that kind of thing. Gravel, gravel, gravel. But in any case, recommendations. Basically, if you're just starting out, cable actuated brakes are fine. A nice aluminum frame. I think Jenson's USA has some on sale for like $800 or something, like $800 somewhere around there. Under $1,000. I mean, it does have Claris, but it's still Claris Shimano componentry, so therefore it's pretty decent. Okay, going back to builds. Builds are a lot damn more complicated than when I started, because we just had mountain bikes and road bikes and only a handful of them and a few hybrids. So quite honestly, I don't envy you newer mechanics just learning how to build bikes because I don't know why I put gloves on. I'm not going to do anything. It's just getting hot. So in any case, now you have a whole laundry list of different type of bikes in there. The industry has overcomplicated itself, and sorry, I'm just going to put it out there. Just sorry, because they took the ball and ran with it, and they have too many damn SKUs, too many different styles. It's confusing for the mechanics, confusing for the salespeople. It's just downright confusing. A lot of smaller shops that can't carry everything and will not carry everything because it's just, they're going to pigeonhole to what you have. So what you learn as most mechanics starting off as building bikes is what is within your market. So if you're a road heavy, road oriented location, just doing mostly road bikes, you're going to mostly just going to learn about road bikes. Once in a while you get tripped up when you're doing service, something like this comes in, you're like, oh damn, I got to learn how to do a dropper post. Luckily for you though, on the flip side, there's this wonderful thing called the internet, and YouTube is a great platform, and also Facebook, where I'm also streaming this too, is a good place to learn how to do a lot of those technical bits. Quite honestly, I do that too. I come across something I haven't touched in a while, like, oh, how to do that again? I'll look up a video or two and just get a refresher to make sure I'm like, oh, I remember how to do that trick, or something else will spark like, oh, I worked on those and this is the best way of doing it. But in any case, and then I'll make a video of it. But in any case, it's one of those things where, yes, there's so much information and so much different styles of riding, and then you apply that to all these different tech between the shock and the dropper posts and the disc brakes and the shifting mechanisms, the suspension linkages. My God, I mean, that's where you got a lot of bike shops that are picking a niche and they go that direction. But as a mechanic, you're not going to know everything. You're never going to learn everything. That's the part of the joy of it, is if you're that kind of person that enjoys learning and like taking things apart and putting them back together, you're in a good place. Most of the time you're introverts and you don't really are not people persons. You'll need to work on that because communication is very key to the general public, especially when you're working on their bikes and so forth. I was a shy kid, same thing. I had to break through that shell. I was deathly afraid to go onto the sales floor. I mean, afraid. And now look at me, 35 years later. I mean, I have no problem going on somebody else's sales floor and sell somebody a bike. I mean, like, I'll just, oh yeah, that's a cool bike. I'll tell you all the features about that. Even though I've never been in that shop before. I mean, that's where you'll eventually get to, and it's actually good. And my dad was part of the influence of that, of getting me out. He was a people person. He really helped me get out of that shell. Therefore, that's why a lot of bike mechanics are kind of, they seem mad, but they're not mad. They're just quiet. So don't get them wrong. Anyway, but yeah, I'll try to keep up on some of these comments as I'm rolling through. So starting off with shop experience, learning how to work on bikes. Please, there's going to be a few senior mechanics, owners out there. They're going to be really helpful and willing to help culture you through the journey. And believe me, It's not about speed. It's about doing it right. And doing it, maybe not the first time, but test riding it and making sure it's right. Therefore, that's the most important part of it. And just to let you know, that's the most important part of the service. It should be for the service manager and owner of a bike shop. It's like, you don't have to be fast. You just have to be good at what you do and be done right. So the complications of being fast is you miss things. And if you miss things, something's going to eventually happen, which is going to be pretty catastrophic. And then it comes back onto the shop. And when it comes back to the shop, the service manager has to talk to the customer about what happened, was there an injury involved, and all those things. We've all been there as senior employees of the cycling community. We don't want that to happen, and it's going to eventually happen, but we want to minimize the risk, basically. So yeah, if you're a little slower, and we know it's going to take you time to learn, but we want to make sure it's done right, and over a period of time. Trimming wheels is very complicated because you got three-dimensional play, tensions as well, and it's a science in itself. But it's also an art that you'll learn over time, and time is your equations to being a little bit faster. Granted, I was building bikes for at least about 2 years before they started throwing repairs at me. And then once I got to do repairs, there were light repairs, then I got into complicated repairs. And before I know it, I'm head of the service area doing everything, and then talking to the customers about it and all that. So it's a whole circle. And don't rush it. Enjoy it, actually, because when you start getting the repairs, we'll go into that in a minute here, the hot mess that was behind me. But yes, it's one of those things that you're looking for the win at the end of the day, especially after those very challenging repairs and so forth. And even on new bikes. And granted, a lot of the new bikes are being produced, and they're being produced on purpose to be less needed mechanical need, because a lot of them are shifting to go to direct to consumer. Trek, Specialized, Canyon led the way. A lot of other companies. But although some of those bikes that have not been kind of prepped yet, like Scott joined the game of direct to consumer, where you can get it from Jenson's or through Scott Sports Direct. Those bikes they need a little more help. They're a little more taken apart. But although a lot of the times the wheels are not as bad as they used to be, you just need to touch them up. If even that, the hubs are pressed bearings, so you don't have to adjust those half the time. Most of this junk is already installed. My God, the box of parts back in the day that we had was it is really stripped down. Because I don't know why, they just didn't really pay the extra pennies for overseas to have that stuff put on, because they needed to get the boxes as small as possible to ship over. Now they kind of shifted gears or shifted direction. So any day that the bikes that you're building today should be a lot easier to put together. But though, all those basic technical training pieces of how to adjust a derailleur, adjust those brakes, adjustment of the bars and stems, torquing all those bolts, and making sure it's safe to ride is the end game on that. So in any case. All right. Forbidden classes. Thank you for joining. All right. Finding a coworker with both hands skills and customer-friendly skills is a challenge. Yes. If you can work on a bike and also talk to customers, that's almost two different people in most cases. One's usually not good at the other. If you find somebody that's okay at both, yeah, you got a winner. Keep them. If you can give them a salary to keep them appeased or discounts or whatever, go for it for sure. Take people on the web development and mechanics. Yeah. Yeah, you got a good point there. It's like, you just can't, as like if you're a service manager or a lead mechanic, you got to be expected to have the fresh people come to you, and you have to have that skill set to be able to put yourself in their position and take the time to train them without being abrasive and turn off of. Because there's no really there's a couple schools out there to get people into the industry, but since Barnett's dropped, no longer because of QBP canned them, throwing them under the bus, of course. Yeah, it's just like, you're not help cultivating the culture. Granted, like, Trek has probably a training program of some sort. I need to talk to the guys there, gals there, see what they have for that. I mean, REI, they have to have some kind of cultivating process of bringing in people and a pathway to promotion and so forth. But it's just not as streamlined. There's like no bike mechanic union. I mean, there was talk about it thrown out there years back, but nothing really came of it. In any case. But, we need to find a lead-in. And that's where the YouTube is probably, or somebody to take the reins of going, okay, let's make training programs for people just to learn the basics and how to put things, start from building bikes to basic wheel truing and building commuting of that. And unfortunately, I'm just one guy. I can't do all that. So it would have to be maybe a community build post board, I don't know, maybe Facebook might be a better place for that. I'm not sure. And if there is something already out there that you guys stumbled across, let me know. Put it in the comments below or in the chat. That would be help to direct people in that direction, because we can't. I mean, Park Tool has a great series on working on bikes for their tools, but it's kind of like random one-offs on like, oh, this is how you do a brake. This is how it's not. Basically filed together where this is step 1, step 2, step 3. I remember there was like a 12-step, write-off sheet that my dad wrote out when I was building a bike. Number 1, unpack the box. Number 2, put the box parts on the bench. He really made it kind of like, chew the wheels, just the hubs first, all those things. And then, test ride was at the end, and then have somebody else double check your bike, which is another thing too. So, but yeah, I don't think there's one that has, I mean, Park doesn't have it filed in that direction. Yeah, Jared, thanks for joining. Yeah, GT. Well, we were a GT dealer back in the 90s. And yeah, I mean, they're a little bit simpler. They were cool bikes. Hans, I remember Hans Ray. Remember him? Oh, yeah, it was pretty cool. Saw him at the bike show, Interbike in Vegas, doing his little trials riding, jumping over people and obstacles and stuff. That was pretty cool. Oh, Randy, you're never too late. It's better, you're fashionably late. You really haven't missed much. Just me jibber jabbering. Patrick, full yeah, it also depends. Patrick has a great point. Is he could take a full shift to build a high-end tri-bike and internal cable routing and so forth, Trek, Concept. Oh man, I've had a couple of those. Recumbent tri-bikes. If you're bread and butter bikes, like I would say, like the Trek Marlins or the Rock Hopper from Specialized, whatever your brand, your $400, $500 mountain bike, or your entry-level road bike or gravel bike, those are going to be a little bit easier to put together. But when you have those specialty niche bikes, tri-bikes, trikes, and then you add electric assist to all that, it gets more and more complicated. So, I mean, even on a good mechanic, let's just put it away, D-Bulbs. For me to build a bike, let's say I had a customer and I dropped off a bike, I'm like, okay, I ordered this online, here you go. And it's a trike or a cargo bike with electric assist, or even a triathlon, a tri-bike. That's a lot of tries. Those are going to take me a good part of a full day to put together with my experiences. And it's just, the cable routing and so forth is tricky to make it right. Then you have the fitting portion of it. Yes. So it's really not about how fast you can be. It's basically how fast you can identify a problem and then take the time to fix it. That's where the speed needs to be, really. That's my opinion. That kind of thing. Yeah, I want to be stuck on speed. It's never, gotta let that go. Just let the speed go, D-Bubbles. It's not about speed. And, and if that's the only thing you're going to be worried about, there's going to be mistakes happen if you go always too fast. So speed beware. You can get somebody hurt. So it's not about speed at all, and your boss is correct. It's like you do not want to push that at all. Oh yeah, Patrick has a good point. They all have training videos. Like Trek will have their own series of videos, as well as Specialized. Shimano has theirs. SRAM has a few. And Park Tools, you can kind of collage those together, but the thing is, they're usually brand specific, because obviously they're going to just be promoting their own tools or brand or what have you. But you can still get some gold nuggets off of those, and a lot of them are usually shorter, like 3 to 5 minutes. Then you can pick up a lot of good stuff for sure. Hey Joe, yeah, Hans Ray, he was pretty cool. Yeah, I was like 20-something going, wow, he did things to the bike that I could only be envy of, for sure. Yeah, if you get time at another time, just go look up some YouTube videos of Hans Ray, GT Hans Ray. They were doing some really cool stuff, which are being mimicked today for sure. Bicycles offer the hobbying at home that teenagers used to be able to get from work on a car instead of riding a car, driving cars. Mono cars mess up. Bikes can still, you can still learn on which electronics the bikes support. Yeah. So yeah, the complication points is manufacturers have gone haywire because they want to push the latest thing, the newest thing, and they keep double downing on it. And they're still shooting for the elitist rider market, the 1%, whatever it is. And it's just, a lot of that tech is technically trickled down their line. But quite honestly, you ask any seasoned mechanic that's worked on bikes for a long time and's been around for the duration, internal cable routing through the head tube, steer tube, various other things. And you go into Patrick's point about the tri-bikes, when this is when they had just all cable actuated shifters and derailleurs. Those are a nightmare. And I do get 1 or 2 of in for repair here and there. And you tell them, it's like, all your cables and housing have to be replaced, like right out of the gate. Because there's so many darn bends in there that it kinks all this stuff up. So even after a season, the performance or actually the functionality of the shifter working with the derailleur is compromised so bad because of all the damn angles. When you look at the flow here, when you're looking at this, even though it does have some internal routing, at least the flow is not kinked up to some point. But it's when you put stuff that all in there, that's where you get a lot of problems. So when you're looking at hydraulic brakes, they're not affected by this. And when you look at electronic shifting, which is a godsend for tri-bikes, I'm just going to put it out there, because then you don't have to worry about all that hot mess of internal, because it's kind of like the tri-bikes are designed by like aerodynamic engineers, and then they're like, oh, now what are we going to do with all the cables and housing? It's kind of like an afterthought, and it's always been that way. So in any case, it's just going that way. Find the rear shock for fits your bike. Oh, that's a good one. Trying to upgrade a rear suspension. Fuel EX, and find out confusing and don't want to order the wrong thing. Okay, so what you want to do, and quite honestly, that goes to the complication of so many damn frames with so many different suspensions and different pitches and all that. What you'll need to do is contact the suspension company itself, like whoever's selling the shock, and ask them which model or what size it's going to fit that specific year and model of that frame. I can't tell you. That's where I would have to do research on each one of those. But I do find if you go to either RockShox or Fox or whoever's making the rear suspension, you contact them directly. And even if it's a used model, you can say, hey, I see this model, will this work on this bike? Or I would say go to Trek, but If it's that older of a model, the person that still works there that knows any of that, probably, I mean, it's like after 3 to 5 years, they kind of like forget about it and don't support even the tech portion of their product that they even made. So case in point, I was trying to find a lower bearing for 5900 road bike, and it was a 2001 great Lance Armstrong model postal bike, and contracted check, no idea. Contracted the bearing company, no clue. So yeah, it's just like ages on those. So for when you're looking at suspension replacement pieces and so forth, especially of these pivots in the back here, contact the shock company. They might be able to give you some insights because that's what they do. That's their job. I'm unfortunately not going to be able to store all that information nor care to on those particular, pinch points in the market, that kind of thing. Plus, I mostly focus on road stuff, so I really don't work on a lot of these, quite honestly. This one's my neighbor's. They just want me to clean it up for resale. So, in any case, that's what we got there. But yeah, it's one of those things that even if somebody has been in the industry for a long time, it's how much that there's too many pieces to the puzzle, especially when you're looking at aged older bikes like the Trek EX on those. I don't think they make that model anymore. I think it's changed over to something different before. Let somebody else in the chat that has off the top of their head know how the equation marks for the rear suspension, but in any case. Before electronic shifting became so common, I found that a lot of cyclists with MS were getting electronic shifting due to the ease to use because of their condition. Absolutely, electronic shifting is a godsend for those who have hard times pushing that lever. Also, if they're right hand or left hand dominant, sometimes you can get the shifting mechanism to work with the other hand, the program wise, so you don't have to worry about that cabling of all that jazz. So it's a win-win in my book, especially when you could have different different adjustments to that. And like on the Shimano one, it's like just on one side going up and down. Will adjust your front and rear derailleur. So you can just do a right hand. I think you can do left hand dominant, but I'll have to research that. I really haven't played with it too much. But great point, Tony. Thank you so much for chiming in. Josh from Precision E-Bikes in the house. Thank you, buddy. He's north of me. That way. Yeah, he's in Fort Collins, about 10 miles away. He's a great guy. I did a feature video. Look at my library of his shop. He is the e-bike expert in our neck of the woods. Even the local shops, when they get tripped up with something, they go to that guy. So everybody knows a guy, and this guy knows a guy in the e-bike realm locally, and that's where I send all my issues to. We are seeing some nice electronic shifting units on e-bikes too. Nice, good point there. The Blinks auto shifting, huh? Oh, they bring it back. Well, that would be able to apply the auto shifting with all the cadence usage. Yes, that would make sense. Great point. Just to get people out there riding. It's just huge. Oh, okay. Bubbles have another question here. Also have a question. It's moving up. Upgrading clipless worth it on an indoor trainer, or my flat pedals are fine, performance and price wise. Okay, you can find yourself a cheap set of pedals, clipless pedals for like 20, 30 bucks. Throw them on that trainer. I mean, the newer cleats are probably going to be more expensive. The reason being you want clipless on an indoor trainer is instead of pedaling up and down, you're getting more of a pedal stroke, better workout, and actually if you use clipless on your other bikes outdoors, therefore you want to keep that same muscle build up the same. So yeah, you can find some used shoes, whatever, get a clipless system there. If you haven't done clipless on regular bikes, it's a great way to learn, because the transition for those who just done spin bikes with clipless and transition to their other bikes that are into clipless, the learning curve is a lot shorter and less for risk. So therefore, yes, the clipless efficiency is huge. But if you're not comfortable with it, or if you just want the ease of just jumping on a bike and go, platforms, whatever whatever encourages you to ride more is the answer. You want to take down any barriers that anybody wants to ride a bike. So case in point, my wife does not do clipless, and I will not try to get her into clipless, which I've had. And back in the day, as Patrick may remember, she fell over and broke her leg when I was trying to teach her how to do clipless pedals. Therefore, that's a barrier. But in any case, it doesn't happen to everybody, but there's a risk to it. And therefore, if you're not comfortable, if you just want something for ease, whatever gets you on that bike, but there are some efficiency factors to it. Just answer that question there. All right. More, okay. Gently moving. That's a nice party pace level of riding. Do you find that the Facebook Marketplace is one of your main competitors? Because I've bought several nice mountain bikes from Trek, Fuji, and Giant for under $100 for the past few months. So for me, no. For a regular bike shop, sure. If they're just selling new bikes, absolutely, but it's always been there. So it's always been a competitor. So when you look at that, yes. But if you are a bike shop that carries mainly new, you as well can leverage Facebook, Craigslist, your local trade-up bikes to provide already tuned up, as will I do, bikes that are used for those lower price points. Even though they can see that same bike is $150 and you're selling it for $300, well, you already put the tune-up into it and parts can be replaced. So there's a value to that, and you can explain it to them. And if you do even a static fit, like a cherry on top, to make sure they're fitted to their bike, even better. Therefore, they would have a better experience even though they're spending more, which they would have to anyway at some point with a used bike, have a mechanic or do it themselves. I mean, time is money, so they have to equate that. Even though you're like, oh, I can do it myself. Well, that is your time, how much you're paying yourself on an hourly wage. I mean, case in point, I know how to do plumbing, but I'm going to have a plumber do the plumbing because I don't want to waste 8 times longer to do the plumbing job when they can do it in a shorter period of time when I can be doing something I'm an expertise at. So therefore, there's a value flip there. Any case, do I find it as a competitor for myself? No. Bigger shops? Yes. But that's the customer is still not going to walk into some of those shops anyway. So that's not really their market. Like the upper and higher shops or corporate stores, for example, like Trek and Specialized corporate stores. They don't sell anything used. And yes, they know they're competing against the used market. Could they leverage it? Absolutely. Will they? Probably not. But so therefore it alludes to a lot of us local independent shops to be able to take advantage of those as well as customers, for sure. Hopefully that answers your question in a long-winded way, for sure. Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, same here. I'm sure you're busy. Hey Josh, thanks for chiming in. Good to see you and hear you. Yeah, I'm sure you were just as busy as a left-handed, one-handed drummer, as my dad would say. But yeah, it's like just going crazy. Busy as it is, I do have to keep this a little bit shorter today. Well, I have to go pick up my daughter. That's one. Second, I have to dive into other projects. But I'm trying to get, I mean, I work all the time, so even the weekends too. So I'm a little ahead, but also I tempered my schedule down a little bit because I'm doing a big event this weekend. Well, for me, it's a big event, which is Bike MS, a 2-day support ride, which actually one of the rest stops I'm going to be at is in Loveland by the post office. I'll have to get the address, that kind of thing, and post that. But that's where we're going to be for the first day on Saturday. And the second day we're going to be in Longmont. So those wrap up my whole days for those 2 days of doing any other work besides just doing the event. And the day before, if anybody has done, just a heads up, your shop, if they're doing a big event like that, the day before or two, they're going to be gearing up and getting stuff ready. So that does pinch some of the service work turnaround for sure for those. But it's a great community thing and something that it should be done. It should be done. So. Oh, Tony, AI shifting. Yeah, it'll shift before you even want to know to shift. Yeah, I mean, also elevation changes and so forth, and before you know it, it's going to be just like cars. Yeah, They get cars to drive by themselves, which they don't do well, believe me. I can see the potential, but there's a lot more to go before they get there for sure. Yeah, speed, pedal cadence, pedal torques for the systems of select right gear. Yeah, that's a thing, and Josh has a great point there. And that's also a good, interesting, especially with e-bikes. If you haven't been riding a long time or whatever, and you get on an e-bike, a lot of the people just stick with 1 or 2 gears, which you still need to ride most of the e-bikes. You still need to ride it like a regular bike where you're utilizing the full drivetrain, which is causing wear and tear on most bikes because you're just torquing the heck out of that 1 or 2 gears. So you need to treat it by shifting. So if you have a customer or yourself, if you got yourself an e-bike or you need to teach somebody e-bike, it's like, yeah, knock it down a couple notches so you're actually doing some of the work. Number 2 is leveraging your drivetrain, so you're distributing that load amongst your whole drivetrain versus just 1 or 2 gears. You're going to be wearing out stuff a lot bit faster if you don't do so. So that's one of those behavior things that can be probably fixed, or for self-shifting drivetrains. I would see definitely a benefit of that. That's an interesting point. Although I don't live in that realm, Josh does, a precision e-bike, so hey, kudos to you, buddy. Tony. Weak bones wasn't, yeah. All right. You know, B-dubs, there's no stupid questions. Honestly, you know, you hear that term, but within the cycling, we rather hear a dumb question than lead into something else that actually will give you insights, and you know, maybe you learn something else. It's a great conversation, and shop talk chatter in the back is always, even between movies and where to ride to how to work on this weird thing, like how these come off. Do I use a compressor, or oh wait, there's an Allen bolt, you know. Is it a standard or is it metric? Is it adjustable Allen wrenches? Yeah, whatever. But when you're looking at those kinds of things, yeah, it's a scenario where take your time, safety first. You will get there. You'll be a little bit faster. I really hope that your shop is not commission based, because I've worked in several shops like that for doing repairs, and you don't get the best results. You think you get better pay, but quite honestly, you don't get better results. When you work on, if you have a good team and it's just going to get done right, the commission is a management tool to get more volume, to make more profit. That's the businessman's perspective, or business person's perspective of the business. But it's not the right perspective it should be. I mean, in my opinion, you can yell at me all day long, but quite honestly, in the commission-based scenario, even I was suckered in of working on too many repairs too fast, and it could become questionable of your quality and safety. So it doesn't serve the community well, your customers well. Yeah, I could see the dollars and cents of it, back end of it, but quite honestly, it only takes one colossal mistake to put your shop pretty much out of business. I mean, yeah, it could be not just, you got insurance to cover the suing, but you get a bad rap of like you do crappy work, like 1 or 2 incidences within those clubs, all of a sudden, the pipes, they turn off the faucets. Like, don't buy a bike from them. It's crap. I heard Johnny got hurt, like, no, it's not safe to buy from them. You don't want that. I mean, that's, it's better just to do it right and just just stick to your guns, because the business will come and pay for itself. And hopefully, I mean, if we're lucky, still saying nothing's for sure, but it's one of those things you want to try to change that behavior if you can, because it's just, or put it in more of a light or a bonus or something like that. It's like the community things. Like, I love going to places where the restaurants have a community tip versus individual tip. because the whole staff, if they work out as a team, they're going to make sure that table gets taken care of regardless who's wandering around. So therefore, I think it's a lot better perspective on that. Rick from Oregon, thanks for chiming in. Really cool. That's you're doing this week live. All right, yeah, yeah, you got a bike, pull out of the box, you put the bars on, the wheel, the pedals, and that's pretty much saddle, seat. That's pretty much it for the newer bikes. Well, we all know they've been working on the bikes for a long time, and Patrick can contest to this. Like, oh crap, well, the headset might be not just right, or the hubs might be, or the brakes could be, there's a lot of things. Shipping's hard on bikes. I mean, even on a perfect scenario. So when it gets into your shop or your customer's hands from a direct to consumer, there's some things that should be double checked. Even on, I've picked up used bikes, and I know it was not set up correctly from the beginning. Like, whoever built this bike 10 years ago didn't put it together correctly. And that really kind of like, whoa, it puts you off. It's like, well, number one, how do I even know that? Well, there's certain things when you put a bike together on certain models that there's a right way of doing it, and there's a dangerous way of not doing it right. And therefore, there's a couple things. Like, one was a Klein, for example, and the grommet that press fit into the brake housing was in the back portion, so it had internal routing. And the grommet was still sticking out. Like, when we got those bikes new, that we had to press them in and make sure they went in and snapped in so the housing fit in tight. Well, it was on a smaller frame, a lighter rider. They rode it this whole time. The original owner, thank goodness that thing didn't tap in, because that would have shortened or lengthened the cable by a 1/4 inch. And if your cable actuated brakes, and I know not a lot of you know that anymore because everything's disc now and hydraulic, but if that much of the brake becomes slack as you're trying to hold on your rear brake, all of a sudden you don't have a rear brake on a road bike bombing down a hill. So thank goodness nothing happened, but I can tell it wasn't built correctly from the beginning. So, working on bikes, making sure there's, certain models. And, if you're building bikes in a shop, and if you've done like a first run of the mountain bikes and you're like, okay, then you get thrown a full suspension, don't hesitate to ask, like, what do I need to do, or what do we need to know to make this one, build this one just as good as this one? I know it might take longer, but what do I need to look out for? And then that's where you leverage those companies they're buying the bikes from. It's like, hey, what's different about this bike that I need to know to teach my guys and gals how to build these things? Like, what's different? I mean, we used to hound them. I used to hound them all the time. It's like, well, got this new tech, what the hell? What's the teaching practices of it? Which they may have videos now and all that, which is great. But if they're not providing that, that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And then when you get thrown them, like, don't assume as a service manager, don't assume that bike builder knows how to build a tri-bike if they never built one before. Even if the guy or gal that came from another shop is like, oh, I'm a builder for such and such, I'm working here now. Ask them all the questions like, have you built a tri-bike? Have you built this one? Did you develop this style? Have you built a specialized enduro versus a Trek fuel? I mean, there's going to be differences between them, those kinds of things. And the better information you could trickle down to the actual mechanics and builders to know how to put those things together, the less slack or the pushback is going to be like, I built this bike, and gets to another mechanic, a senior mechanic, to double check it. And if he's having a grumpy day, he's going to say, that builder doesn't know how to build anything because I just keep on getting stuff that's done right. Well, unfortunately, he never got the right guidance to begin with. So you get some hostility there. You want to cut all that down, especially in June this month. Super busy. Everybody's pulling their hair out. We got another whole month and a half, 2 months of this craziness to deal with. And a lot of us really need to take just a breather and go, okay, let's just take a moment and let's work it as a team and not get all ruffled. I mean, I've been in environments where people have gotten really grumpy with each other, and that's just not good. And you got to, yeah, as a leader of your team, you got to pony up and go, I gotta play HR for a while and therapist to make sure everybody's working together. So therefore, there's two sides of all coins. Just try to get your employees to work good as possible. If you are the new mechanic and you get called out on something, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I was not shown how to do that. Can you give me some insights? And therefore that senior mechanic might flip and go, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be quick to judge. These things are a little bit different versus the ones you may have been working on. And hell, they may not know either because they may not know that other brand you've been working on as well. We're all learning. Doesn't matter if you're a day 1 to day 5 to day 5 years to day 50 years. You're all still learning how to work on stuff because things constantly change. And then our memory is not the greatest. So yeah, that 30-year-old bike that I had to go work on, I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember having an accu shift back then. So in any case, so to wrap up this perspective of taking care of your staff mechanics, of getting the start off, the lead in. We'll go in future Tuesdays, we'll talk about certain things a little more highlighted, but I wanted to start off as a kickoff on that perspective and go from there. And then, whatever, you guys please chime in if you're in a shop, what have you, or just working in one or have worked in one and saw things that worked well, or which to watch out for may be problematic. Please let us know. This is a community of us all, mechanics and riders alike, because a lot of those riders, this is very valuable to them too, because hey, they may get a bike in a box that's been shipped to them. Now they're the bike mechanic, they're the builder. At the end of the day, if you have any question about the safety of any of your bikes, as a rider, consumer, please take it into your local bike shop to have them do a safety check to make sure it's done correctly. Even if it's like very simple and straightforward, it's one of those things that, mechanics side, we're seeing these every day, may come across something like, oh, wait, that's a little bit off, or the brakes, performance, that kind of thing. The good shops will be able to, they'll most likely just do that for free, but they want you to come back in for the all general bigger service tickets or work. So that's something that, I implore a lot of shops to, be more warming of the canyons and the specialized being direct to consumer and the direct to, that's what it is. It's either you're going to embrace it or you're going to just be grumpy old, and you may be okay doing that. But whatever, we know where that goes. In any case. Oh, Target was sued here for bad assembly customers. Broke the collarbone. Oh man, yeah. I mean, department store bikes, yeah. And a lot of us know that a lot of them are like, they're not that bad. I mean, if they're adjusted correctly, they're okay. I mean, are they perfect? No. But if they're adjusted correctly, they're safer to ride. It's better than nothing. And that's what a lot of people, all they can afford. So yes, and there's, they're just, those brands are all about volume. I mean, like units off upon units. But they are providing a price point for those, that's all they can afford. So you got to be a little more understanding when people bring in those department store bikes to be worked on. And then you got to understand that they can't afford that $300 tune-up. But if you can get a couple safety adjustments on there and get them going, and then maybe when they can't afford it, they can buy a new bike from you or a good refurbished used bike off your floor. Try to be the hero and not the zero on this one for sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I went off a little derail there, but Randy, but yeah, it's just one of those things, because I had that attitude, and I will reflect on myself. I'm like, I was so dumb and stupid, and like, I didn't really think about it, and I was probably an ass, and I was being hurtful to people that couldn't afford the bikes that we were selling even back in the 90s. So it's one of those things, like, it's really about get them riding on a safe bike, right? And then everything else will fall in line if it works out, if it's going to work out, that kind of thing. So try to be a little more humane about it and that kind of thing. Oh, thanks, John, for tuning in from Iowa. The new bike, Quantum Klein. Yeah, Quantum Kleins are nice. Internal routing, top two, we just talked about that. Watch out for that grommet. Do not drop that cable inside there. Make sure you have a sleeve when you switch out that brake cable, or you'll be in a world of hurt for hours trying to get that damn thing to thread back through. The down tube ones are, the shifters are not too bad, but that rear brake cable, ooh, really think about that. I may have a video or two of that in my library, so watch those. But other than that, they're great bikes, but you need to be a little careful on that part of it. But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, in any case, yeah, I think I told, oh yeah, yeah, that's right, that's right. Sorry, I just put two to two together. He bought that client for me, so I already told him about that cable. But yeah, all those who are watching that, I want to bring that up to your attention. But yeah, hope you're enjoying it. Hope you get unpacked and all that kind of thing. Thanks for chiming in, Josh. Yeah, well, keep us in the loop on the ever-changing shifting mechanisms of the e-bike world. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of new tech coming down the line that's going to be make us all kind of scratch our heads, like, how's this work? How do we work on this? For sure. Yeah, that's true, Randy. I mean, not to sound completely scary as hell, but working on bikes are fun, but remember, customers' lives are in your hands. Because yes, you have one incident, somebody gets hurt. Nice. So yes, yeah, okay. So, we talked about that, and um, whew, time is flying. Okay, so shifting gears here. So we talked about the shop environment, new shop, people coming in. Also, a lot of shops have seasonal help, and they start work, new employees, and so forth, and then they go on their merry way at the end of the season, depending if it's a seasonality or that kind of thing. So, but as in leveraging used, and the video I had last Sunday was basically a light speed road bike, and the shifters were routed back. They routed the left shifter to the rear derailleur and the front to the right. And there was some pushbacks like, oh, that's an easy fix or whatever. The case of point on that particular one is, yeah, as mechanic or as mechanics, we know that's an easy fix. The nightmare part of it, though, is if somebody was not the mechanic or just somebody who was just going to ride it, go for a ride, the shifting, and if they don't know better, they could hurt them. It's not safe. I mean, that's the bottom line. And there was some grumpy posts that I just deleted because they were just dumb. But and they were like, wow, I thought you were going to find some catastrophic issue with the frame and so forth, the highlights. Like, well, no, it was just somebody switched the cables out and obviously didn't test ride it. That's quite obvious, or didn't know what they were doing. And it looked kind of professional. So I'm like, did the shop do this and just didn't test ride the bike, or did the customer did this, or the owner of the bike did this, and whatever. But that was the thing, and I never saw anything like that absurdly. So if you saw that and you're grumpy about the clickbaity or whatever, sorry, but not sorry, because anything of that nature, if anything is not right with a bike, for especially shifting to braking to everything else, it's not safe to ride. Case in point, in the whole conversation we've been talking about. But in any case, that leads to the other topic, is beautiful Le Mans Zurich. If you don't know Le Mans, well, you may know Le Mans. Greg LeMond was the first American to win the Tour de France back in the day. His name was, and he was acquisitioned by Trek Bicycles in the 90s. They made a line of bikes for several years. I ride a couple of Mon frames made by Trek myself. Great little bikes. I look for gems like this because it has the Reynolds 853 steel tubing frame, which is a big cult following a steel frame is a good opportunity. Looking at my business model is now, parting these things out like this makes me a little bit more money than actually building up the bike and having somebody buy it as a complete bike. That's just the change in the market. I have to adapt to that. Believe me, I'll put a lot of bikes together still as in service, and a few that make more sense to do. But mainly when I saw this bike, I was just looking for the frame to sell in itself and the parts that came with it. That being said, it's very interesting. you know, when you're, and I'm going into the used bike purchasing behavior and what to watch out for. let's put it that way. What to watch out for. And what this particular one, I mean, you can find super gems of used bikes out there. And some people like you should have known better. I have an older video library. I have 20 things to look out for in detail of in the used bikes. I mean, they're bad videos because they're my first run of videos I did, but the points and the valid points are still there. 20 different things to look out for. So yes, I know my stuff. But the thing is, you know, I got lazy. I should have test rode that light speed. I would have found out right off the bat, this is messed up. I didn't test ride. I just looked it over and didn't really go in tune with it. And I was in a hurry. I need to be a little more mindful of that. The thing is he won because I would have came back at him and said, you need to take $100 off of this or $200 off of this, because this is number one, not safe to ride. Going to this guy. This guy, I'm almost infuriated with. Because, I mean, it's a good frame. Yeah. And he was kind of like, original owner. And original owner, right? He knows all the history of this bike, right? Okay. And I was like, is there anything I need to know about this bike? Oh, no. And again, I was the same day, I was being hurried. I had to rush back. I had to take care of family, that kind of thing. I just wanted to pick this up. I mean, the price was pretty good. I can't complain too much, but the thing is like, there's nothing wrong with the frame. The frame turned out to be fine. But, you know, you see the C-post there. So I go to, I should have, right out of the bat, C-post is pretty low, sitting pretty low. And if I had my three-way tool or whatever on me to adjust the seat, I would have noticed the damn C-post was cut. I mean, come on. Look how short that is. I mean, it was down this far, right? That's barely enough for the insertion rate to not compromise the frame nor get hurt on. This gives you no adjustment up and down. So this guy was definitely a weight weenie that decided that you needed to cut off all this extra weight because the seat was too low. And I'm sorry, if this is the height of your saddle on a road bike, the bike is too damn big for you. So you should have gotten another bike in the first place. But in any case, come on. So right now, I mean, the bike doesn't come with the seat post, okay? So I'm like, okay, that's happened before. I don't usually get too grumpy about that. And, you know, I've seen Thompson seat posts get hacked. I'm like, oh, man, why'd you kill a perfectly good seat post? Anyway, and if you do cut your seat post, fine. But when you resell that bike, put a new seat post on there. Take that $20 from Amazon and buy that seat post and switch it out for the customer, because you put them in harm's way when you do that, because that height limit line is an insurance to knowing how much needs to be inside the tube of the frame if you don't know, for safety. So in any case, so that was number one. I got to get my box of parts. So I'm parting out this bike, right? Knowing that certain values I'll be able to get out of that. So the frame, you know, typically the frame, you can get a couple $100 on eBay for it. And then you look at the other parts. And of course, I'm a business. I'm in business. Like I'm business. So I'm looking at parts and stuff. And the other bigger thing that came across, I mean, most of the parts are okay-ish, is the crankset. Okay, you may not know, a lot of the cranksets have self-extracting bolt systems. This is one of the newer designs in the late 80s, early 2000s. Shimano had these. I noticed that the cap was backed off a little bit, and as I proceeded to loosen up the crank bolt inside that pushes pressure on this cap here, it started bulging a little bit. In other words, it wasn't in far enough, and actually it was cross-threaded a little bit. Whoa, 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 back the truck up. Can't just, you know, tear into this. So I had to work out the cap here to be able to have access to the bolt, pull the bolt, then you actually use a crank puller to thread in there and pull it out. So I was able to save it. Let's put it that way, because if the threads of the crank arm get compromised, this crankset is no bueno, and if you don't have no bueno threads to be able to pull the crank off, you can put it on, but I'm not going to sell a crank that you can't pull off. I just lost 80 bucks off of a crankset that I was anticipating and making. Granted, you can't assume that all the parts are going to work out fine. And granted, on these, sometimes the teeth are worn out. Actually, the teeth are actually not too bad on this. The chains of the drivetrain I just pitch anyway, because whoever's going to get this is a new chain. Bottom bracket is crunchy, so I don't think I'm going to be selling the bottom bracket with it. But I actually found out on you can buy, they still sell the newer ones of these for 30, 40 bucks or something like that, so not too bad. So okay, C-post, grumpy. Bottom bracket, getting a little pissed. It's like, this is like, and I get to the wheels. Okay, these are Rolf Comp wheels, and the reason why I know is I've worked on a lot of these, and the stickers got pulled off because apparently they started flaking off or whatever. He did a good job of cleaning the stickers off of them so they weren't gummed up. Actually, these turned out to be okay. So this was a win. I got a wheel set, but skewers didn't match. Then we went to the shifters. Okay, the shifters were missing the caps, but lo and behold, in my box of parts, I had some extra caps. These are a pain in the keister to put on without damaging them, because, well, part of it's age, and it actually had the same model matching. So Ultegras, I was pretty amazed. So quick note, ST65 10s and 01s and whatever these are, they had these are 01s. They had two model differences. They're both 9-speed triples, which is really cool because they didn't make a double version of this. So the triple was the double. So if you needed to switch your drivetrain from a double to a triple, triple to a double, you didn't need to switch out your shifters. So that's what's beautiful about 9-speed Ultegra shifters. But the problem, well, these work okay. They're in pretty decent shape. But the older ones are these caps, and the caps have no functionality. So if they're broken off, it's more about the mechanism that works. The second iteration I did of these were the ST6510s, which have the different cap, same problem, break really easily. You can find there's somebody on eBay is making the 3D printed ones of those, work fine. I've bought them a couple, just refurbished a few I have. The shifting is a little smoother, but other than that, they're both great. So in any case, I was able to, and the shifters were dead on this. I mean, they weren't shifting at all because they're all gummed up and the cables were stuck. So once I cleaned everything out, got them to shift again, I could get my $50 to $80 back here out of these shifters, where I thought was maybe a loss. So that was kind of a gain. Then, so you notice the frame, it doesn't have a fork, right? And I was like, okay, maybe the fork seemed chunky. The headset, that is, the bearings that this fits on, right? So, yeah, and this is a 1-inch, by the way. And so that's another thing. This has a standard 68 shell in the back and then 130 in the back, dropouts. Everything else is standard-ish, except for it has a 1-inch. So if you're going to switch out a headset or a fork, you're kind of limited. You still can get forks, carbon forks, whatever, and also new headsets still. I think Chris Keen still makes headsets for a 1-inch. This is threaded, so if you're getting a new fork, you probably get the A headset version with the shim and then get it more modernized for modern parts with stems and so forth. Okay, long story short, you can get the adapters and so forth on that. But the headset was like, not quite right. I pulled it all apart, cleaned it all up, put it back together, and it was binding, which again, if I was able to test ride it, I would have noticed something was really going on with the fork on what's going on with the steering on this. Something's funky. Pulled out it again. And I know you probably can't tell by the look, but the damn steer tube's bent. Boop, this way, like a half moon this direction. So you can't visually see that from the outside. You'd think when you're just running or back and forth, the headset was muffed up, so you just would replace the headset. This fork's toast. This nice, beautiful Le Mans polished with ceramic coating fork is toast. Toast, I tell you. So, yeah, so that takes a ding of what I could probably sell for the frame on that. So, why am I bringing this all to light? It's like, okay, at the light speed, I should have test rode that. That would have given me that. If I would have figured out some of these parts on this, I would really have gone after that guy. Like, you know what? You need to take $150 off of this, because between the fork toast and the crankset compromise possibly, and the shifters and the seat post, come on. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there's a Craigslist listing. Should have known better. So, forewarn any of those, if I roll up to your house, go look at a bike, I'm going to have my feedback repair stand in one hand and a handful of Allen wrenches in another. And I'm going to go through that damn bike like a fine-tooth comb. And I'm going to find stuff that's going to be bad. And if I'm like adding things up in my head that it doesn't make it worth it to buy, I'm walking away. I think I'm going to be okay with that. And that's where there's enough margin on used. And there's some risk on that when you're taking bikes, regardless if you're going to build them up or just sell for parts. Those are the things. But these two individuals that sold me those two bikes, they knew they had issues. They did not tell me about them. And thank goodness I bought the bikes from them than somebody then trying to get on the bike and go for a ride. Because if somebody who rode this bike would have died. Steering shimmies when you hit a certain amount of speed when your bearings of your headset are compromised. So if you're bombing down a hill going 20 miles per hour and all of a sudden everything goes out of whack, and well, if you pulled up the seat a little bit higher, you only had like this much sitting in your seat post, your ass may have been flying off your bike because you just bent the frame, and all of a sudden you're on the ground going backwards on your head into the pavement, or you're shimming out of control and you crash into oncoming traffic because of the car. This is a road bikes. They usually are on roads with the other horrible obstacle out there that's dangerous, cars and trucks. So in any case, that's it for my soapbox of buying used bikes and trying to make them safe. If you're selling a used bike and you say it's all tuned up and ready to ride, you better really think about it and make sure it is. And if you have any hidden secrets to something, you better divulge those things, especially like seat posts like that. That kind of thing. And you can argue on that perspective, like, well, it's a used bike and whatever. Still, though, I mean, there's still a right way of doing things on here. And that's what probably miffs me the most on that, is like they're just kind of like, they knew, oh, maybe, well, this guy, he had to know. But the other one, maybe not. Maybe you just had somebody at a neighbor down the street, kind of like me, to his cables and just didn't test ride the bike. And they just did it to, put it up for sale. Oh yeah, Patrick. Yeah, thanks for chiming in on the older note about, I did not do that to you when I worked with you, Patrick. Here's a whole bunch of service tickets and just, clearly by the end of the day, ugh. Yeah, I know where you were coming from on that one, Patrick. I don't think it was me. If it was, I do apologize. Yeah, Scott, that was a point. We do have some yahoos that are on bikes on the bike path. They're going way too fast. But I always divert to my story about the grannies on bikes. On e-bikes, they're a cute granny group. I mean, there's like 5 to 10 of them on a various day when I'm riding on, and they're riding on the bike path. They're not going fast on their e-bikes. They all have e-bikes, and they're all riding together. And they periodically stop quite often, and they're just having a great time. I mean, I don't think they would be out there if they didn't have e-bikes or an option to have e-bikes. So, therefore, those particular scenarios, it's a very warm hug to have e-bikes within the community and riding and so forth. But yeah, but even like non-e-bikes, somebody with a hot dog road bike, this guy going way too fast on the bike paths and almost run over your dog, not this guy, but could have been. It's, it happens. In any case. Oh, Levi, thanks for chiming in. Yeah, Euro. So when you're looking at brake cables, and I'm talking about brake cable, well, shifting cables, you can't switch those out. Those are specifically, especially old school on these. The left shifter is designed to go to the front derailleur only. They're not switched out, and the right shifter usually goes to the rear derailleur only because you can't change out the mechanisms and so forth. The brakes, though, on the other hand, there's people that ride motorcycles quite a bit in the United States that like the brake cables switched to what matches their motorcycles so they don't get all messed up in the head. Apparently in Europe, they switch those too. My question is, though, those who are in either in Australia, New Zealand, or in Europe, when you're getting new bikes coming out of the box, are they already pre-switched, or do you have to switch those over for your sales floor? Because I would assume you would have to make sure they're all switched over to be consistent all on your sales floor, because you sure don't want to have a customer come in and test ride a bike and be like, oh, the right is rear is on this one, but on this bike, the left is rear on this one. So don't get confused when you try these two bikes out. Like, I think you would have to be consistent. So I'm wondering if the manufacturers are pre-adjusting those, because the question is, on a cable actuator is not too big a deal, still a pain in the butt. I'm thinking like hydraulic, holy crap, especially if you have to deal with any internal routing and lining. That new bike build has just got super complicated because you got to switch your brake lines to the other side. So if anybody watching this on replay in different markets where the standard of the rear brake is on the left side, let me know, put in the comments below what is coming from the manufacturer. Do they switch those out for you for your particular market? I mean, if it's assumed, if it's a full Europe market, there'd be enough bikes to justify those switch and be designated for that. But in any case, thought that was a very interesting little side note there for sure. Anyway, but yeah, so got this thing all parted out, be taking pictures, listing it, trying to get some of my money back out of it. Yeah, so if you're a bike shop that is looking for bikes to resell and that kind of thing, that would have been way too much money to put into. But as a bike shop, you can leverage, all those that are leveraging to buy used bikes instead of buying from you. You can leverage by buying those used bikes, refurbishing them and getting them ready, and have them, especially if it's the same brand that's on your floor. So if you're like a Trek dealer or Specialized dealer or even Giant or whatever dealer, and you have those new bikes in that line, if you find some used ones in not too terrible shape, fix them up, polish them a little bit, get them functioning fine, and bring them in that lower price point. So when they walk onto your showroom floor and they see a $2,000 road bike right next to an $800 road bike that might be carbon or a little bit nicer componentry but older, that might be a great way to gain those entry-level or lower price point customers, number one. And then if you have a good experience, they'll have an opportunity to either upgrade their bikes at a later date, which even happened to me. I mean, I have several customers that come back and bought the next level up of bike or different bike from me. So you're cultivating that, you're cultivating service, more service work in the future. It's like farming. You're planting seeds, right? And then also, and this is where a lot of these shops and especially corporate stores have totally forgot about, they abandon for some dumb reason, is entry-level bikes are for the entry-level riders, where most entry-level riders need all this stuff. Gloves, helmets, shorts, jerseys, water bottle cages, all this stuff. I bet you 9 times out of 10, when somebody rolls in and buys that $4,000 bike, that's it. They're not buying anything else because they already have all that stuff at home. That kind of thing. Or they're going to buy it. They've been in the industry long enough, they're going to buy all that stuff cheaper somewhere else. They're not going to be that I wouldn't say influence, well, yeah, influence new rider. And if you're there helping him out, guiding them, like, well, you need a bottle cage. They probably know they can get that bottle cage half the price. But if you give them the experience, they feel like they're, supporting the shop when they're buying something that's a little more expensive. they can always buy something cheaper somewhere else. It's always the case, but you can provide that feeling that they're supporting something that, a shop, a family shop or whatever. That's a huge win for sure. But in any case, yeah. So when you're looking, Rick, you're welcome. This one of many 100 things to look for in a bike that could be catastrophically horrible and cost you a lot. And I'd feel horrible if somebody bought this because they roll into any bike shop and they're going, ooh, we got a huge service ticket waiting for us because, a fork, a headset, possibly a crankset, seat posts, tune up, new cables and housing. They would not ever fix those shifters. They would have made you buy new ones. So you're probably anybody that's in the service industry right now watching this, just what I just said on that particular bike with the Le Mans, what's your shop total estimate would be, just on average? That'd be a $800 ticket, $500 ticket, $1,500 ticket. What, for full overhaul, cables, housing, new chain, new fork, stem, seat post, crankset, and shifters to get this classic. Just let's imagine if the customer's like, this was my father's bike, he passed away, and I want to build it back up. What's that ticket going to cost you? Anyway, okay. On to the next thing, because I do have to leave here momentarily in a little bit, but I do have a library. Again, I do have a library of videos, a playlist for 20 things to look for in buying a used bike. I do apologize. They're my older videos. The sound's not that great. Editing's horrible, but the material is solid. Let's just put it that way. At some point, I'll redo those. But if you're looking for yourself and you're a novice and not a mechanic, even if you are a mechanic, look for things, it's the hot things to watch out for any particular part of the bike. There is 20 points there. In any case, thanks, Randy, for chiming in. 1,500 easy. Yeah, depending what you want to buy, but yeah, it can get up there on a bike that basically sells on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist for $250, $200. Does that hurt? That hurts. That hurts. So, industry news. Woo! Yes. I was going to make a video on this. I still might. I'm not sure. But a bicycle retailer dropped. There's a watcher out there. I forget what his handle is or his email. He emailed me saying there's a shop in Boulder that's for sale. They have it listed. I forgot what listing it was, but they didn't name the bike shop. And he already kind of the person that reached out is like, hey, I may have a gold nugget for you, and it's like there's this bike shop for sale. The owner's like done, doesn't have anybody he wants to hand it off to, doesn't want his staff to know that the shop's for sale. They do that sometimes, try to sell it and that kind of thing. And it's a shop, Full Cycles in Boulder. And Full Cycles also used to have a location in Fort Collins, Colorado, which was our direct competitor when I was working at Elite Cyclery. They started off in Old Town, Fort Collins, and they moved it to a second location for a little while. And any case, and that didn't work out, so they just stuck with their. I thought they may have had 2 locations in Boulder at one point too, but they've been around in Boulder for a long period of time. So this guy, the owner of it, was like, "I'm done. I want to sell." And what a horrible time of year to try to sell your bike shop, or not year, but market-wise, because Trek and Specialized are no longer buying anything right now because they've got it handed to them. They're shrinking stores as much as they can. So they're shrinking their stores. They're not buying anything unless it's like too good to be true. And they're they're in this scenario where like who's in the right mind is going to buy a bike shop right now when your numbers have to be not the greatest in the last 2 years? Everything's going to a weird crash. Besides an investor, somebody, and buying bike shops for like like for me to go buy a bike shop would be dumb. I mean, it's just like, no, I would just buy a building right next to yours and make my own shop. I mean, yeah, you get some carryover from customers and what have you and that kind of thing. Or if it's an institution, like it's been around, like this one's been around for a long time, people have a go-to, that kind of thing. Like in Fort Collins here, went from Lee's to Trek. A lot of people didn't even know it was different because some of the staff was still there. And then went from Trek to Specialized, and they roll up and are like, oh, completely different people and completely different store, but within a week later, it's a different shop. I mean, sometimes they still carried a lot of those same customers. But anything, what's really interesting about this is, the story goes, I'll bring this big up again. So the article in Bicycle Retailer, I do need to put a link in the description. I'll do that after this. But, okay, you got Full Cycles. This was last Tuesday. It reopened under Mike's Bikes. If you don't know Mike's Bikes or the videos I've talked about Mike's Bikes is owned by Pond Holdings. Pond Holdings is a company that owns Cervelo, Santa Cruz, Schwinn, Mongoose, used to be GT, but they can that line, Cannondale, and about 50 different companies that they do underneath this. It's an investment company, as well as, I believe, Porsche and Maserati or something else like that. A couple big car dealers. They're a huge investment company, basically. They have all these things, and they bought a line of Mike's Bikes in California, and they started adding them across the United States. They did a purchase. I wonder what part of it. Yeah, Caro in here. They did a purchase of a few locations in southern Denver, Parker as in Denver. And what was interesting is Trek was jockeying to buy these locations in 2022, and Mike's Bikes, Pond Holdings, come in and swoop in and buy these locations from Trek. Oh boy, that pissed off Trek. Sorry, didn't mean to blurb that out. My daughter's watching, I'm sorry. No, chip jar. Any case, so they are in a little bit of a power play here, right? Okay. So they talk about this is their 19th location in the country. So they're not planning to open a lot of shops. They're not aggressively, but this is a good opportunity. And Boulder University Bikes is also carries so down the street. You got to feel kind of miffed if you're a Boulder University Bikes because you already carry Cannondale and Santa Cruz, right? But now your competitor, which carried different brands, is now going to be basically carrying the same brand. And I don't care how the CEO tries to make it sound fluffy, but quite honestly, when you're a brand that you're buying from and your brand opens a store down the street carrying the same brand is not good. Schwinn did this with a Schwinn store in Denver, and this was the first corporate store out of all those bozos to build a corporate store back in the 90s. It did not go well, and everybody was super pissed because you're not protecting their brand independent bike dealer. This does not really help out Boulder University Bikes whatsoever. I mean, they try to, they'll have inventory available and we'll work with them and there'll be a good partnership and all that. Unless they're giving them a huge discount on the cost on bikes, like their level of discount, it's not going to help them at all. Or if they're going to pick a different niche, like one's a road store and one's a mountain store, maybe not. Then also they were carrying Moots, which is a Colorado titanium company built in Steamboat, is no longer going to be there. So when it's, if you walk into Full Cycles and you're like, now it's Mike's Bikes, and oh, I bought a titanium bike here, which is, your $10,000 bike. My guys that service it may still be there. They said they retained a lot of the same staff, which is kind of cool. Used to be a cafe there, and they're going to, can that for now because they don't know how to do coffee, apparently. They know how to do cars, but not coffee. So they have a bagel and coffee truck outside. Ooh, like, okay, sure. Yeah, they're trying to sugarcoat it, and I'm not trying to be too, I'm just reading between the lines. This is my opinion piece. This is, I don't know anything specifically. This is my experiences of being in the cycling industry and how companies of acquisition stores across the street, similar to what Blockbuster did back in the day. They like try to put out every mom and pop shop, video store, and look where they are now, nowhere. So they have a history. That's why they bought them. They have probably good volume of sales, and that's being able established, and they're doing high volume. And actually, I've worked with them briefly, I think, through Retail Toolkit, either we're a client or going to be a client of ours. So they had some really good numbers. Nice shop, been there, nice. And switching over to Mike's Bikes, which is just basically a name for the company, where they're not going to call it Pond Holdings because, well, number one, nobody knows Pond. They're not going to name it one brand because they have 50 different brands. And then they could swap out brands. That's the idea while they go through this whole process, right? So, and whatever fits the niche and that and what have you. And they go to hold, oh yeah, with their other Denver market. They have, for now it's like 4 or 5 shops in the Colorado market. And okay, Boulder is epicenter of cycling in Colorado. Let's just back up to that. It is one of the biggest places. There's like a bike shop on every corner. It's always been like that. Always will be that way. Cycling's huge. You got to watch out for more cyclists than pedestrians, and almost more cyclists than cars in most cases. So it's like a miniature Amsterdam. I've never been to Amsterdam, but I could assume it's like a miniature Amsterdam in Colorado. Just really huge cycling enthusiasts from every kind of riding. So, and CU has a huge cycling team, which is the college there, if you don't know, that kind of thing. So that's where they're like, okay, they want to sell. This is a great way, and to really take it off, that kind of thing. And they have this person, the CEO, have her do this MBDA. If you don't know, it's the Bike Dealers Association. She did a talk in Arkansas, that kind of thing, whatever. Cool-ish, fine, but the interesting between the lines on this one is we had a little article about Specialized in Louisville, which is 10 miles away. They had office buildings where they're closing down. It used to be a Pearl Zumi building, but they bought the building from Shimano at the time. I think Pearl Zumi is owned by somebody else now. But anyways, a lot of shell games. They're not technically right across the parking lot, literally across the parking lot. It used to be the Pros Closet, and they've shut down. Now they've reopened under a new investor in Thornton, which is pretty close still, another 15, 20 miles away from there. Anyway, reading between the lines. Okay, they move in, retain most of their staff, cool. They take advantage, they're going to put in some of their lines if they're not already there. Cool. They had a shop close to them, Universal Cycles, which carries Canada or whatever it was, Cervelo, and Santa Cruz. Maybe they'll carry the same lines. I don't know. If they said they weren't going to, they're still going to. They're still going to burn them. They don't care. They're big corporate. The University of Cycles doesn't do enough volume with Pond to make them go, oh, okay, we'll listen to you. No, not whatsoever. Big corporations don't work that way. And here's the sting. Here's the other sting. Universal Cycles was also a Specialized dealer. You think they're carrying Specialized now? Nope. And one of the biggest locations to have Specialized location, like in a very high volume, prominent area for selling a lot of Specialized bikes, no longer is there for them. So Specialized loses a huge dealer because Pond came in and stole one of the locations that they were selling to an independent bike dealer on that. I don't know if there was conversations with Specialized, probably, but Specialized is like, oh, we can't afford to do that right now. Did they get an opportunity to counter? maybe, maybe not, even if they were in part of the conversation. Apparently this bike shop's been for sale for a little bit of time, because I remember the first hearing of this was a few months back. So this is not like a hot and fast thing. It was just kind of like, we're in there. I'm sure the owner like reached out to Specialized, whatever his brands, and Pond probably was like, oh, we'll think about it. And Specialized like, nope, because we're hurting. They gotta be hurting. Trek's like, we're just trying to figure out damage control. Plus they already have a Trek corporate store in Boulder. So they're not gonna, why would they open why would they buy another shop there? Because that apparently is one of their bigger shops that are doing high volume, besides the one in Fort Collins. Apparently they're doing pretty good too. For corporate, for Trek. Are they making enough money to support it? Probably not, but in any case. There you go. So you have the soap opera going on in Boulder, which is the hotbed of cycling in Colorado. Specialized loses a dealer. Yeah, like, oh, well, it's one of many of the dealers. Well, they have corporate stores here in Fort Collins, 3 of them, Fort Collins, Loveland. They have a few in Denver. They have now lost a big foothold in Boulder. So their Specialized rep, or the whatever territory, whoever's left in upper management, territorial responsibility is like crap. Huge loss there, and they're already going to be losing more sales and so forth from that. Will they open up or bolster a store that already carries Specialized in Boulder, which they may already have? I didn't look at the homework to do that, but nor do I really care. But they, that's the opportunities that they do or can do to bring that out. Or maybe they'll look into at some point putting in a corporate store, either a new one under InCycle or whatever brand. Who knows? But it definitely is, volumes are being reduced there. And that's not the first time that Specialized has kind of got burned a little. There's the shops it's about 2 years now, in Utah, Salt Lake area. There was a shop that carried independent owned chain locations. They had 5 or 6 stores. They've been a Specialized dealer for a good decade to 2 decades. And this is where Specialized has their new warehouse. Well, they had one already, and then they just moved like across the street, and probably not across the street, but they had another warehouse built up, and that they owned versus renting. So that was a good power play for them, and had more space. They're going to be distributed to other brands that they were hoping to help leverage and pay for that big building that they got, which is smart. Being a dealer, having a warehouse in your town, like you could just walk over there and get up whatever bike you need for a customer kind of thing pretty easily. So there was that. And this particular dealer had such hardship and troubles with the Specialized brand, they flipped all their locations to Trek. And this didn't hit any news cycles or anything really, I don't think. But they were a client of mine. And with all my clients of mine during Retail Toolkit days, I had an email list from all of them, so I'd see what the promotions and all that, just so we had something to talk about when I had meetings with them. I'm like, oh yeah, promotion, that was kind of cool, whatever. But they flipped to Trek. I'm like, holy crap, that's got to be a huge loss of sales there. So, not to say bad about Specialized. I know it's coming off that way, but it's like, this is very volatile times when you're seeing this, and when you're seeing a company like Pond going ahead when they probably shouldn't be opening stores right now, going to open a store or buy a store, and then where Trek and Specialized are pulling back is intriguing, to say the least. Yes, money's there, long term, all kinds of things going on, but this is the power play that was as independent bike shops, garage people, or all that, are seeing all this stuff going on in the headlines. But in any case, it's just one of those deals where, it does affect some of the market, but worstly happens, it's going to affect the customers, where you bought that Specialized. Now you got to go find somebody to work on it, boots as well, that kind of thing. You may still like the mechanics. You might still go there to have the work done, but any kind of warranty or any kind of, specifically brand stuff is going to be, you're going to be forced to go elsewhere. Small scale to a lot of things, but at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about, is your community and customers that you've been servicing all these years. But in any case, thank you so much for chiming in. I do need to go pick up my daughter. And thanks again for hanging out, Shop Tech Tuesday. If you like those insights, please smash the thumbs up, like and subscribe if you want to read more or watch more of me be in the garage, that kind of thing. Thank you again for hanging out with me in the garage and listening to me jibber jabber about industry, bike building, all the way to industry news, that kind of stuff, and whatever I find in between. Few things to be working on, and yes, I'll be doing a recap video next Tuesday on how the big MS ride happened in Colorado. Was it good, bad, otherwise? Might have some featured little films in there in between. But again, thanks to you for hanging out with us. And again, for those who joined in the chat, John, thank you for chiming in. Doug, Randy, of course, seen you several times in here. Rick from Oregon, Patrick, brother from another mother from another state. Yep, worked with him back in the day. Levi, thank you. Scott, for being a strong and valuable customer of mine. And Josh from Precision E-Bike. Look him up if you have any e-bike questions or needs. He is a go-to for us here. Bubble, thank you for encouraging me to reaching out to those who are starting off into the cycling realm and learning how to work and build bikes. Tony, again, thank you for being part of the community. Gently Moving, thank you for popping in and asking a question about the Facebook Marketplace type deal. I'm just going through the list here, see if I may have forgot anybody. Forbidden Colossal, thank you. You chimed in before. And Joe, enjoy the weather up there in the mighty north of, he's in Canada. Hopefully things are going good. Hopefully you get some paddling with your paddles that you hand build. Sweet channel, got to check it out. It's fun to watch, definitely. I think that might be, Jared, again, thank you for chiming in. The questions are always very valid. And Tim, the man that started it off, well, also was Steve, thank you for chiming in. But Tim, I'll have a shop with you till later, 5 o'clock somewhere. Again, thanks for hanging out with me. Find information and so forth. You're watching us the replay. Please comment in the comments if you have any other insights. This is a community they're building. And again, if it's Tuesday, we'll see you next Tuesday, Shop Talk Tuesday. You guys have a wonderful week and get on your bike, go for a ride. Enjoy. Thanks again.